So I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Shropshire Morning Star Reading and Supporters Group, and thank you very much for attending. And we couldn't be happier with the subject title we've received, which is the as yet relatively unknown story of ANC recruits who went over to South Africa, and Ken, who was one of those recruits, and was also the editor of the book where his account and the accounts of many other volunteers are recorded. So they picked very good people, as the fact that it was kept secret for over 40 years has demonstrated. And so, without any further ado, I'm very proud to welcome Ken. Ken, you told the story in the book in 2012 for the first time. Thank you very much and welcome to this meeting.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to give a little historical context. Racism is not a natural human trait. It's something people invented for a reason, and I think it was originally invented in order to justify and to facilitate the enslavement of African people. If you can convince yourself that the things you're doing or allowed to be doing to certain people can't happen to you, then it's all right, it's not so bad. You can treat them as somebody else that these things happen to, and it couldn't happen to me. It makes it easier to have this racism, and that's, I think, why it was invented by certain European countries. The first British slave trader was Captain John Hawkins, who was knighted by Queen Elizabeth I for his slave trading activities. His coat of arms had a picture of an African, black African, with ropes around binding his arms, and he was bound, you know, very, very firmly bound. Sir Francis Drake was a slave trader. You know, I learned about him at school, but it's only about 2 years ago that I discovered that he was a slave trader, you know. But it's deeply in our history. The British Empire, in my view, it had to modify its racism to suit the needs of the empire. And in my view, the British Empire could not have functioned for a single day without official state-sponsored race discrimination and racist ideology. And nowadays we have another version of it, Islamophobia, which is essentially the same thing. The people, the powers that be, invent a version of racism that suits their particular needs at a particular time. So it's no surprise then that when South Africa was established by Act of the British Parliament, it was established as a racist setup. The Westminster Parliament passed the South Africa Act 1909, which set up the new dominion within the British Empire called the Union of South Africa, which united 4 colonies. That's why the word union, and that it would have a parliament elected on a racist basis and for white people only. Well, actually white men only, of course, because it was as much sexist as it was racist for similar reasons. So white men only in this parliament. And if it hadn't been set up in that way, it's inconceivable that the racist laws that were passed later on by the successor parliament would have passed those laws. When the Afrikaner Nationalist Party came to power in 1948, they set about setting up this new system, which they called apartheid in the Afrikaner language, which means separateness. We sort of pronounce it apartheid over here, but that was a mistake when the word reached this country. Apartheid is what it's called in South Africa, and I switched between the two. So they started setting up the apartheid laws, and this was sort of setting up the whole country on a racist basis. And as I say, you couldn't have had them passing those laws if they'd been accountable to a black electorate. It's inconceivable. So Britain, you know, is deeply implicated in this thing.